All right, let's think about these windows. As I look at these, I see that the scale models have two windows here, but the actual photographs have one window. And if we go and take a look at our reference image here, it too has only one window. So I think I'm going to go with one. Seems to be a little bit more realistic. If we zoom way in here, we can see, I think what I'm seeing here is that there's a glass block. I guess it's so thick it's bulletproof for the window. And then there are these almost clamp type things, just bent pieces of metal that hold that glass block in. So I think if we create one of these, we can then duplicate and move them around. In addition, since these glass blocks will have a transparent material on them in the end, we're going to need a hole in the actual turret to be able to see through as well. So we're going to probably need to use the Boolean modifier to cut holes in there. So I think we have our work cut out for us. Let's go ahead and give this a try. First of all, I'm going to switch to the 3D cursor here and just click right in here, so that when we create a cube, it'll be created right here. And so I'll press Shift A, Mesh Cube, and I'll hit the S key and scale down a bit here. Let's try and get this the right size and position. So I'm thinking maybe about this big here. All right, if we tumble around, we can see that there it is. It's going to need to be scaled in the X here, but should we go ahead and use our Boolean while we're here? We have it in place. So maybe let's go back to solid view and let's select this part of the turret. And I'll go ahead and apply this solidify modifier here. And then let's try and add a Boolean to this. So I'll add modifier Boolean, and then let's choose that cube. I'll click the eyedropper and then select that cube. All right, and now let's just click apply. Okay, so it happened over on the other side, so I think it happened here as well. That's good. I'll select that cube again and hit S and X. Let's scale it in and bring it just outside of that hole there. Is that about the right thickness? Let's go to our front view and, well, we might be able to come out just a little bit more. Maybe if I brought this out like this. There we go. Let's try that. Is that, well, that seems to be a little too far out. Let me bring it back in right about there. Okay, I think that looks pretty good in terms of the thickness of the window there. Now let's go ahead and build these bracket type things. I think what I'll do for this is select this edge and move the cursor to it with Shift S2. And then I'll create a polygon plane, mesh plane. There we go. Let's turn it in the y-axis, RY90. And let's scale this down. Let's pull this out to about there. SY, let's scale it in. Maybe put it right about here. So it doesn't go all the way. Let me do that. Oh, I'm still in local mode here. Let me switch to global. That's why I was having to hit S and X to scale it in the Z axis. So there we go. That's a little bit better. So maybe something like this. Then we tab into edit mode and select this edge, and let's hit E and X and pull out like this. And then let's press E and Y and move it over like this. Something like that. Now I think my edge over here is a little bit too wide, so I'll pull that in like that. Let's now give it some thickness. I'll add a solidify modifier to it. I'll press Control A and apply the scale, and that helps. I'll click even thickness, and that also helps even that out. And then I'll drag in the thickness field. I feel like this could come out just a little bit more like this. Let's try that. And if that's going to come out, then I better move this back in like this. Try this. Okay, there we go. So that's, I think, looking okay. We've got a slight curve here on the inside. We also have them on the outside here, but I don't think we need that. But that slight curve might be kind of nice. So what let's do first of all is apply our solidify modifier. I'll come over here and click apply. And now let's grab these edges right in here, this one and this one. And now let's bevel these edges again with Control B, and I'll drag the mouse with the Shift key held down there. And then I'll add a few segments, and that'll kind of round those out just a bit. Okay, good. So now what we need to do is create the other 4. To do that, let's select the window cube here. Let's move the cursor to it, Shift S2. And then what I'll do is from the side view, I'll duplicate this and then rotate it at that 3D cursor to put it on top and on around. But to be able to rotate at the 3D cursor, I need to move that pivot point to the 3D cursor. Now I can actually do that up here, of course, as we've been doing when we mirror an object. But we can also do it temporarily by just changing the pivot of our object from the median point, or the center of the geometry, to the 3D cursor. So if I click here, you can see this orange dot right here. The origin has still stayed within the geometry. It's just that the pivot point has changed. All right, so what I can do is press Shift D and then press Enter. And then I'll press R and hold the Control key down, and I'll rotate it so it moves up here 90 degrees. There we go. So now we can press Shift D, R, Control, and bring it down like that. Shift D, R, Control, and bring it down like that. There we go. All right, so we got that one done. That's pretty good. From here, I think the next thing we should do is move this over and put it here and put one up here. So we can duplicate it, move it, and place it where we need to. So let's move that cursor or that pivot point back to the median point of the object. I can move the 3D cursor back to the center of the grid with Shift S1. And then let's take these objects here, all of these, and that center cube, and press Control J to join it all together, because it's just going to be easier to move around at this point in time with it all one object. We may break it up at a later time, but for now it's just going to be easier. So let's press Shift D, and I'll hit Enter, and then we'll just move this over. And let's go to that top view, and let's just try and put this in place here. I'll hit the R key and rotate and G and move it over here. Looks like we need to rotate it a little more. There we go. Let's try that. All right. Is it in the right place? Let me go to the side view here and take a look at it. It's kind of hard to tell. I would like to, I think, move it forward just a bit so it's more centered on that panel. To do that, I can slide it over. I can change the transform orientation to local again, and that'll change that axis, so we can kind of slide it over like this. All right. Now let's take this one and move it up here. So Shift D, Enter. Let's drag it up. And we'll go from the front view this time. We'll move it up here. Hit R. Rotate it a bit. There we go. Let's see how that worked. Well, we're a little bit off, aren't we? Let's go to the side view and see where it's supposed to be. We need to move it back this way, don't we? There we go. Okay, so now we have all of those windows in place, but we only have the hole for one of them. We need to create the holes for the other 2 panels. So if we take this one here, and to do this, I'm going to go ahead and split this up again, these objects. If I tab into edit mode, and let's go to face mode, now I can hover over this cube here and press the L key, and that will select all linked components for that piece. So only that cube has been selected. Now I want to split it out into its own object, and to do that, we can press the P key, which brings up the separate menu, and we can choose to separate the object, separate this piece from the object by selection. There we go. So now it's its own object. I can use that for the Boolean. I'm going to tab into edit mode, go to face mode, select that face at the back of the object and pull it through. There we go. Now if I select that, add a Boolean, select the cube, and then click apply. And there we go. All right, so now I can take that face back in like this and place it right about there. Okay, let's do the same thing on the one on the top here. I'll select the object, tab into edit mode, go to face mode and hit the L key to select just that piece. Then I'll hit the P key to separate by selection. And now if we tab back into object mode and just select that one cube, tab back into edit mode, select that one face and pull it through. Okay. Now we select the top panel. What do we have here? We've got a mirror and a solidify. I think we better apply that solidify before we do the Boolean. Let's go ahead and click apply here. Now let's go add a Boolean. Click the eyedropper, click that cube, and then click apply. And there we go. Okay, so let's move this back up into here. And remember, I'm in local transformation mode, so I can move it in line with the angle of the object itself. Okay, let's get this back up in here. There we go. Now what we can do is mirror these over to the other side. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and combine all of the windows and frames together and then mirror them all as one object. Once again, we may break them apart at a later time, but for now, this is probably going to be easier. So I'll just select that window and this window, and then this one and the frames there. Okay, so that now selects all of them. Let's press Ctrl J to make them all one object. Let's move that origin down to the 3D cursor. And then let's mirror this over to the other side, and we get a mess. Let's try and apply the rotation, and that does it. Good. So there we go. Now we've got all the windows and frames for the turret. So in the next video, we'll work on the windows for the front panel, and maybe we can also take a look at the windows here for the windshield as well.